My name is Hunter Bell, and as I write this, I have only 1 week left to live. 5 years ago, I was convicted of 13 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. The law, police, and media have painted me as one of the worst killers in recent history, blaming me for a brutal massacre. But here's the thing, I'm innocent. I need to make that clear right now. I told my side of the story during the trial, but the judge dismissed it as a last-ditch attempt to plead insanity. It wasn't. I was declared mentally fit and convicted on every charge. Now, all my appeals are over, and my execution is scheduled for next week. Maybe the governor will step in at the last minute, but I'm not holding my breath. To the public, I'm a monster, but they have no idea. I've stared true evil in the eyes, and it wasn't me. With my time running out, I want to set the record straight. I'm not claiming to be a saint. I had my share of trouble as a kid, spent time in juvie, and made mistakes. But for years, I'd stayed out of trouble. I would never have planned a bank robbery if it weren't for Max, my younger brother. Max was always a problem child. He was emotional, impulsive, and constantly getting into fights. As his older brother, I felt responsible for him. I kept bailing him out, and this pattern followed us into adulthood. By his late teens, Max had a serious drug problem and ended up owing $30,000 to a dangerous gang. They made it clear they weren't messing around by chopping off one of Max's fingers. The boss threatened to kill him if he didn't pay up within a week. Max had no chance of getting that kind of money, so I stepped in. The bank robbery was sloppy from the start. We weren't some professional heist team like in the movies. It was me, Max, and 2 other guys, Dante and Arnold. Dante was trouble of violent guy with a criminal past, but he was the closest thing we had to an expert. He brought in the guns and a clean getaway car. Arnold, on the other hand, wasn't a criminal at all. He was an old friend from high school. I trusted him, but he was nervous. He agreed to drive, but only if he didn't have to go inside or carry a gun. We picked a quiet bank in the suburbs, thinking it would be easy. The plan was simple. Max and I would hold up the tellers. Dante would force the manager to open the vault, and we'd be in and out before the cops arrived. We thought we could get away with $100,000, enough to pay off Max's debt and still make a little extra. But of course, things rarely go as planned. I considered calling the whole thing off on the morning of the robbery, but I couldn't see another way to save Max. That's a choice I'll regret until they put the needle in my arm. Nothing the gang could have done to Max could have been worse than what happened in that bank. The tension in the car was thick as we drove to the bank. No one said a word. Arnold parked the car, and the 3 of us put on our masks, grabbed our guns, and stepped out. I had a 9mm pistol, Max had a Magnum revolver, and Dante carried a shotgun. I told Arnold, "Don't worry, this will be over before you know it." But he looked terrified, gripping the steering wheel with sweaty hands. As we approached the bank, I felt a chill run down my spine, a bad feeling in my gut, like something wasn't right. But it was too late to turn back. Dante barged through the doors first, and we followed. Inside, the bank was almost empty, no customers, and just 1 teller. She was a middle-aged woman with too much makeup and blonde hair in a bun. She stood behind the counter, calm as could be, with this creepy smile on her face. We pointed our guns at her, expecting her to freak out, but she didn't even flinch. Instead, she smiled wider and said, "Good afternoon, gentlemen. What can I do for you today?" We were all confused. Dante, losing patience, snapped, "Are you stupid? This is a robbery." But the woman didn't seem scared. She just smiled and said, "Oh, how exciting. My first robbery." Dante looked like he was about to lose it. So I stepped in, trying to calm things down. I lowered my gun and said, "Listen, we don't want to hurt you. Just open the registers." She pressed a button, and all the tills popped open. Max ran over to them, but his face fell. "They're empty," he yelled. Every single one was empty. I couldn't believe it. Something was seriously wrong, and before I could figure it out, Dante raised his shotgun, pointing it at the teller. He growled, "Take me to the manager, now." "I'm afraid he's quite busy at the moment," Alice said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Dante's grip on the gun tightened. "You won't take me to him? Fine, I'll blow you away." His voice was calm, but I knew he meant it. There was no stopping him now. Alice's smile faded for the first time. She sighed. "Well, if you insist, sir." She pressed a button, and the cage door behind the counter opened. With a calm demeanor, she walked over and gestured for us to follow. "Shall we?" she asked, inviting us in. The three of us exchanged uneasy glances, but followed without a word. The whole situation was getting weirder by the second. No customers, empty registers, and Alice, the only staff member, acting like this was a normal day at work. Something was definitely off, but I couldn't figure out what. I just hoped the manager would cooperate. We needed access to the vault. It was the only way to salvage this mess of a jobs. We trailed behind Alice as she led us through the door to the back, past the steel barrier. The hallways were empty, not a single other staff member in sight. As we walked, I noticed the security cameras, they were all off. Strange. Even more unsettling was the music playing overhead. It was louder back here, almost aggressive. Suddenly, the speakers crackled to life, and a shrill, high-pitched sound blasted through the air. My ears rang from the noise, but just as quickly, it stopped. Then came the laughter. Deep, cold, and twisted. It echoed through the hallway, sending chills down my spine. We all froze, except for Alice, who kept walking like nothing was happening. Her back was to us as the laughter continued for a few more seconds. Then a voice spoke through the speakers. I can't describe it, it was low, almost inhuman. It dripped with malice. "The spider sees everything," it said, "and there is no escape." My jaw clenched, and I saw Max's wide eyes filled with terror. Dante, always the tough guy, growled and gripped his shotgun tighter. "Someone's messing with us," he snarled. "I'm gonna make them pay." I wasn't so sure. My gut told me this was more than a prank, but I couldn't figure out if Alice was part of it. She finally stopped at a door and turned to us, her creepy smile back in place. "The manager is ready to see you now," she said in that same fake cheerful tone. Max and I shared a look. We'd been through rough situations before, but this one felt different. Max was usually the reckless one, always jumping into trouble, but now he looked genuinely scared. Still, I had to stay strong for him. I gave him a pat on the back. "Let's go," I said. Dante, either too dumb or too stubborn to be scared, pushed past Alice and barged into the manager's office. Max and I followed, but Dante suddenly recoiled, his face pale. "What the?" he muttered, backing away from the door. I didn't want to look, but someone had to take charge. I stepped into the office, and what I saw made my stomach churn. The room was a wreck, furniture overturned, a smashed computer, and in the middle of the chaos, tied to a chair, was the manager. He was beaten badly, his face swollen and covered in blood. His shirt was torn, and the wire around his wrists and ankles dug into his skin. He wasn't moving, and I couldn't tell if he was alive or dead. I read the tag on his shirt. "Hello, my name is Andrew." It felt like a sick joke in this situation. Max stepped up beside me, his voice shaky. "What's going on, Hunter?" he whispered. I shook my head. "It's another crew," I said, my voice steadying. "Someone else got here before us." Dante was furious. "They're gonna regret messing with us," he spat, readying his shotgun. But I wasn't so sure. My instincts were screaming at me to get out, to abort the mission, but Max interrupted my thoughts. "Is he dead?" Max asked, pointing at Andrew. I checked. "He's alive, but barely." Max's face hardened. "We need to help him." I was shocked. "He's not our responsibility," I snapped. "We came here to rob the place, remember?" Max glared at me. "You said no one would get hurt. We can't just leave him like this." Dante had a different idea. "We need him. He's the only one who can open the vault." I glanced at Alice, but she was gone. "Dante, find her," I shouted. Dante cursed under his breath and ran off to look for her. Max and I stayed behind. "Okay, let's get this guy loose," I said. I cut the wires around Andrew's wrists, and he slowly regained consciousness. His eyes shot open, filled with fear. "Please, no more," he whimpered. Max tried to calm him down. "We're not gonna hurt you, but you need to tell us what's going on." Andrew's eyes darted between us. "You don't understand," he said, his voice shaky. "We have to get out of here, now." His white hair and crazed eyes unsettled me, but it was the gun in his holster that really got my attention. The security guard stopped about 10 yards away, grinning wider as he stopped whistling. "Well, howdy folks, what's going on here?" he asked casually. I reached for my pistol, but Max beat me to it, stepping in front of me and aiming his gun right at the guard's chest. "Freeze," my brother ordered. "No, don't shoot him," Andrew, the injured bank manager, suddenly shouted. "That's just Carl. He's our guard. He's been working here for years. He's a good man." I kept supporting Andrew as he called over to Carl. "Do as they say, Carl. We don't want any trouble." But Carl's grin faded, replaced by disappointment. "Oh man, I've waited my whole career for this. I wanted to be the hero who stops the bad guys." His voice was almost sad. I felt a mix of confusion and fear as I glanced at Andrew. His one good eye widened in terror, and he whispered to me, "Oh God, it's him. He's taken Carl's form." "What?" I had no time to get an answer. Max cocked his revolver, his voice shaking. "Throw your gun down now, hands in the air." I wanted to stop him. Max was scared. He was no killer. But Carl, or whoever he was, wouldn't back down. "How about we settle this with a shootout?" Carl said, almost childlike in his excitement. "I'll even give you the first shot. What do you say?" "Don't do it, Carl," Max shouted, trying to hold it together. "I will shoot you." Carl didn't flinch. "Okay," he said, eagerly reaching for his holster. On the count of 3. 1, 2, Max fired. The bullet hit Carl square in the chest. He staggered dramatically, clutching his chest. "Oh no, you got me," he cried. But when he removed his hands, there was no blood, no wound, nothing. Max stood frozen, his hand trembling as smoke rose from the barrel of his gun. Carl, on the other hand, grinned wickedly. "My turn," he said, pulling his gun faster than I could even react. I screamed, rushing to shield Max, but it was too late. Carl pulled the trigger. Click! Nothing. No bullets. And then he burst into hysterical laughter, a cruel and inhuman sound. "No way, man. I'm not letting you off that easy," he cackled, before turning and sprinting down the hallway, disappearing around the corner. "What the hell?" I muttered, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. Max stood frozen, still aiming at the now empty space. I gently lowered Max's gun, then turned my attention to Andrew, who was still on the floor. As I helped him up, I noticed movement down the corridor. Dante, our shotgun-wielding partner, running toward us. "Whoa, easy," I said, lowering my gun. Dante stopped, breathing heavily. I heard gunshots. "You guys okay?" "Did you find Alice?" I asked, suddenly remembering the missing hostage. Dante's expression darkened. "Yeah," he muttered. "I found her, and the others. You're gonna wanna see this, boss." A pit formed in my stomach as we followed him down the hallway. The smell hit us first. Death, a stench so foul it made my eyes water. We turned the corner and found the vault, but between us and the safe was a horrific pile of bodies, 10 of them, all mutilated. Blood covered the floor like a gruesome painting. Andrew let out a sob, recognizing some of his co-workers among the dead. My brother, already shaken, ripped off his mask and vomited in the corner. Even Dante, usually cold and hard, stood silent in the face of the massacre. I forced myself to examine the bodies and froze when I saw one of the name tags. Alice. It was her same hair, same face, but her throat was slit and her body was cold. She'd been dead for hours. That's when I saw Carl's body too. The guard who had confronted us just minutes earlier. Dead. But this didn't make any sense. Carl had clearly been killed long before we encountered him. "What the hell is going on here?" I demanded, turning to Andrew. The bank manager was shaking, barely able to look at me. "I don't know exactly who he is," Andrew whispered, "but he's not human." Dante scoffed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Call him a demon or a shapeshifter. He can take the form of those he's killed," Andrew continued, voice shaky. "He's strong and ruthless. Bullets won't stop him." It sounded unbelievable, but after what we had seen, it was the only thing that made sense. "What does he want?" I asked, already fearing the answer. "There's a box in the vault," Andrew said, his voice barely audible. "It's been sealed for decades. My old boss told me, under no circumstances should it be opened. That thing will do anything to get it." Inside the back room, we found a woman tied up, surrounded by papers and cleaning supplies. She looked like any other employee, dark hair, olive skin, green eyes full of fear. But when she saw us, hope flickered in her eyes. Andrew rushed past me, forgetting his injuries. "Isabella," he cried, quickly untying her. "I was so scared for you." They hugged, emotions running high. I had a feeling there was more to their relationship than just work, but this wasn't the time. "Guys, we need to go," I interrupted. "You can reunite later." We hurried into the bank lobby, but something felt off. The security cameras were off. Andrew explained the intruder had shut them down, but I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. At the door, I remembered Arnold, our getaway driver. Grabbing my walkie-talkie, I called, "Arnold, do you copy?" After static, his voice came through. "Hunter, where have you been?" "It's a long story. We're coming out, and we've got company." "Company?" he asked, confused. "Just get the car ready." I tried the door, but it wouldn't budge. Locked. Frustrated, I spoke again. "Arnold, we're locked in. Can you get the door from your side?" Arnold cursed, and moments later, his silhouette appeared on the other side of the glass, struggling to open it. Dante lost patience. "Screw this." He fired his shotgun at the door. The deafening blast echoed through the lobby, but the bulletproof glass held. What's wrong with you? I shouted. But before I could say more, my walkie crackled again. What happened? Arnold asked, panicking. Never mind. We'll find another way out. Arnold's voice was firm. Hunter, I didn't sign up for this. You're on your own. His silhouette disappeared, leaving us stranded. Is there another exit? I asked Andrew. It's block 2, Max suggested. Can we call for help? No cops, Dante growled. Andrew shook his head. Phone lines are cut and cell service is down. Whoever did this thought of everything. Suddenly, a voice boomed over the bank speakers. The flies try to escape, but the spider isn't done with them. A deal can still be made. Silence fell. Max looked confused. A deal? You can't give him what he wants, Andrew said firmly. Why not? Dante shot back. He wants into the vault. So do we. What's the problem? You can't let him win, Andrew shouted. Before they could argue, I cut in. We're not playing this guy's game. Then we heard a chilling laugh. We turned to see Marco, the man we thought was a survivor. But he wasn't Marco anymore. He had transformed into something monstrous, with sharp claws and fangs. Oh God, it's him, Max gasped. What do you want? I demanded, trying to stay strong. I told you I want a deal, the demon grinned. Don't trust him, Isabella screamed. He's pure evil. Dante fired at Marco, but the demon didn't even flinch. He attacked in a blur, ripping Dante's throat with his claws. Blood sprayed everywhere, and Dante was dead within seconds. Max and I opened fire, but Marco just laughed as he healed instantly. With dark magic, he disarmed us, then turned to me with a wicked smile. Hunter Bell, he sneered. Always the hero. But does Max know you slept with his girlfriend in high school? His words hit hard. I glanced at Max, seeing the hurt in his eyes. I couldn't speak. Marco then turned to Andrew. The family man, right? Except you don't wear your wedding ring to work. Long nights with Isabella. Andrew's guilt was obvious. You'll open the vault, Marco demanded. Andrew hesitated. I won't. Marco grabbed Isabella, holding his claw to her throat. You will, or she dies. Andrew's resolve broke. Okay, I'll open it. Marco smirked. Good. Now, you two, he pointed to Max and me. You'll bring me what I need. Reluctantly, Max and I stepped into the vault. Among the stacks of cash, Marco had his eyes on something specific, a small, heavy metal box. I handed it over, my stomach churning. Marco tore it open, revealing a golden amulet with a ruby at its center. He put it on with a triumphant cry. Now, nothing can stop me. I knew we had made a huge mistake.